MicroGDS has always had an excellent set of 3D navigation tools. You'll have encountered these if you've done any 3D modelling for visualization or design purposes. But now that we're moving into the BIM world with intelligent objects, the 3D manipulation of the model has become more important. So we're just going to have a quick exploration of the 3D tools that we've got available to show how we can maneuver around the model, into the model, and display any element that we want to see. We'll start with a look at the controls here along the bottom of the drawing window and down the right hand side. We have here a thumb wheel, and clicking and dragging along the thumb wheel on the bottom of the window here rotates the model in the view. In fact, what it's doing is it's rotating your eye around the model, and you can do the full 360-degree rotation just by moving the pointer along again and clicking and dragging again, letting go. You can keep going round and round. And likewise with the vertical thumb wheel here, you just roll your eye around the model. And the two slider bars just allow you to slide the view left and right and up and down in the view. And the little arrow buttons at the end of the slider bar, you can just slide along in increments. Reset the view. We'll take a look now at the view controls arranged down the side of the 3D view on screen. The view controls adjust themselves according to the type of view that you have, so the 3D controls will vanish if you're looking at a 2D view of your project. Now the cluster of controls down here are the ones that we're interested in, and we'll start by taking a look at the orbit tool. The orbit tool is one that we've used in most of the previous demonstrations when we were creating the intelligent objects. So we click on the orbit tool and drag in the screen, just click and drag, and that allows us to manipulate the model to rotate around it until we're happy with the view. And when you use the orbit tool, the point of interest, the look at point as it's called, remains constant, and the distance of your eye from the model remains constant. You're in effect actually moving the eye around a sphere that surrounds the model. Your point of interest can be changed, and we'll look at that shortly, and you'll see how you can actually orbit around any individual element of the model. Below the orbit tool we have the pan tilt tool, and that allows us to look, again, click and drag. You can look towards one side or the other, you can look down, you can look up. Okay, so you can manipulate your view in that fashion. And the slide tool, which is identical to the effect you get when you press in the center mouse wheel, just allows you to maneuver the model by sliding it around the view. Now all three of these controls also have optional modifiers, so you can use the shift key and the control key to modify the effect of the command. So let's say, for example, you want to use the orbit tool as your main tool, but let's say you want to slide the view slightly. All you have to do is press the shift key and it switches temporarily to the slide command. Let go and you're back into orbit. And likewise, if you press the control key, it switches temporarily into the pan tilt view. If you select the slide command, the shift key temporarily switches you into orbit, and the control key temporarily switches you into pan tilt. And finally, if you select pan tilt, the shift key switches you temporarily into pan or slide, and the control key switches you temporarily into orbit. So you don't have to keep switching the different controls to get the different effects. Just choose the control that is the main one that you want to use, and you've got the two control keys, the shift key and the control key itself, to adjust the command. The next pair of controls are these two here. So on the one hand we've got, let's just set the focus, one hand we've got the field of view control, and on the other we've got the advanced control. The advanced control moves the eye point along the line of sight. So if you click and drag in the view and move the mouse upwards, you move into the view. If you move the mouse downwards, you move out of the view. And the field of view, what that effectively does is it changes your view style in the same manner that you can switch the view style when you're using a camera from wide angle to telephoto. So if you click and drag and move into the model, it becomes a wide angle view, and the greater the distortion, the wider the angle you set. And if you drag out, you effectively get a telephoto effect. So again, you can adjust that to simulate the effect that you're trying to achieve. Now, as with the last group of controls we'll look at, you've got a modifier down here, so you can take your field of view command, and by holding the shift key down it becomes the advance and retreat, and you can take your advance command, and by using the shift key that becomes the field of view command, just temporarily. So again, you don't have to swap between the two commands all the time. We've talked about changing the focus of the current view, and if you use your advanced view here and advance into the model, just give it a moment to refresh the screen and to fix that. When you use your orbit tool now, you're orbiting around the model at a much closer view. If I restore our view, if we select, let's say, the primitive that makes up the roof over the showroom display area, we can use our zoom to selection here, our draw selection, to adjust our eye point and our look at point. And now when we use our orbit command, we're orbiting around that roof. Equally, if we select something small, say this revolving door, and we zoom to that selection, our orbit tool will now orbit around that component. Okay, so you can adjust what you're looking at and then manipulate the view around that thing in any number of ways. You can have more than one thing selected and zoom to the whole selection, for example. So we just restore our perspective view. When we use the thumb wheel on the mouse button, that also alters the point of interest. It adjusts the point that we're looking at and the eye point. So if we decide that we want to look at the folding door here, if we just position the pointer over there and use the thumb wheel to zoom into it, just click to set the view. Okay, give it a moment for the mouse to recalibrate. When we use the orbit tool now, we're orbiting around the folding door. Okay. Similarly, if we look at something inside the model, let's use our pointer to zoom to the staircase, and then just use the slide option on the thumb wheel just to get the staircase centered in the view there. Again, give the mouse time to recalibrate itself, and the orbit tool will now orbit around the staircase. Reset our perspective view. You can also use the zoom rectangle command. You'll have used this a lot on your 2D views, but it also works in 3D. But instead of defining a rectangle, it defines a 3D shape, something that's called the frustum, which can be extremely frustrating to use, which is actually a pyramidal volume that describes the 3D extent that you're actually trying to view. You first snap on the corner, you can then swing that pyramid around until you are grabbing everything that you will need to see. So if we come right down here, that zooms slightly from where we were, and again we can just zoom into this area here. So you can continue to zoom in until you reach the area that you're interested in. Some users prefer the older style of 3D navigation using the zoom to rectangle command, and you can restore that behaviour if you really must by using File, Preference Files, selecting the Layer tab, and then use V9 mouse navigation for 3D, and under Personal select the box there, click on OK, and then when you use the zoom to rectangle command, your first snap is on the centre of the view, and then the second snap defines the extent of the rectangle.